What's going on, everybody? Houston Ensemble, episode 13. Oh my God, it's episode 13, and we have.
No. Actually, it's episode 14.
Why? Oh, it's
The one
14.
earlier.
You were this close, Seth.
It's okay.
It would have been perfect.
Baker's dozen an unlucky number. I don't know, one of those. Yeah.
Okay. Seth is a Houston musician. He's been here forever. He's played with everybody. Seth Paynter. He plays everything. He's played with everybody. Right now, he's actually learning to play guitar. So we're gonna talk to Seth, but we want to get deep with Seth, and we want to possibly go down some intense rabbit holes. So Seth, you can start with whatever you want, and then we'll go from there.
All right, well, I guess we'll start with the guitar. Yeah, I mean, as many people have been doing during this pandemic time, just kind of picking up hobbies and whatnot. And when I was kind of thinking, there was a brief period when I was unemployed for about 2 months, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was kind of looking at my compositional ideas, and I've loved extreme metal for a long time. And
Pardon me?
Yeah,
Let's do a quick pause.
All right.
We're back. Continue. Sorry.
We're
Technical
back.
difficulties.
We're back.
Yeah. So when I was looking through my compositions and like some of my yet to be done projects, I have a lot of metal song ideas, and was trying to think about who I know in the city who like plays the kind of metal that I want to play, but yeah, can read music and has like a little bit more of a sophisticated experience as far as like theory and all that good stuff. And I was like, I couldn't really think of anybody, and I'm also a little picky, and I was like, man, I have to like use the power of the internet and try to find some people in other parts of the world to do it. And that's okay for certain kind of ideas, but I was like, wait a minute, so a lot of the stuff that I want to do is just kind of textural. It's not really technical. And almost everybody plays a little bit of piano and a little bit of guitar. So I was like, maybe I can just learn how to do it, and then just So I bought a 7-string to start, because that's how dumb I am, to make it harder on myself. But I like the extended range.
So I don't know if we actually went into like what other instruments you played. Like what was your original instrument?
Original instrument. It's one of my favorite stories, because I originally wanted to play flute, and because I grew up listening to a lot of classical music, and my ear always kind of gravitated towards the melodic instrument, like whatever that was kind of doing on top, and I knew I didn't want to play violin, so I was like, yeah, flute, So I go to my middle school like day one, and this guy next to me, he was like, hey, what are you gonna play? I was like, I'm gonna play flute. He said, I don't play flute, man. It's a girl's instrument. I was like, I kind of froze for a little bit and thought about it.
Did you say you're a girl's instrument?
No, I was junior high. It's like the only time in my life that I've given in to peer pressure. I'm so glad that I did. But he said, I was like, what are you going to play? So he said, I'm going to play saxophone. I was like, I thought about it. And so when they came around, I chose saxophone. Man, yeah. I mean, even all these years later, I kind of learned how to play some flute. And I'm like, that was a good choice. I'm really glad that happened that way. So yeah, so I played saxophone pretty much exclusively throughout until college, when it was stressed upon me by my elders and more experienced folks that I needed to double, as you're well aware of, because they're still in the kind of the big band mindset, which is
just a work to get work.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's definitely less kind of opportunities to double these days. I feel like that's kind of going out of favor. But anyway, to play clarinet or flute, and I never had any desire to play clarinet, but tried for a little bit.
Well, I remember we talked earlier about how the amount of disdain we have for the instrument.
Yes.
And the difficulty just for some people, because, you know, like I feel the same way as you, just there's just this point that I can't get past. Like it's just, it takes so much time to perfect the instrument that like I would rather just spend that time playing the saxophone.
I think I was more tempted to play bass clarinet because that
I enjoy playing bass clarinet.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I definitely had some
clarinet is just a beast of its own.
It is. You know, so I would just, you know, I've always kind of been more of a person who chooses to do something and try to do it well, as opposed to doing a bunch of things and doing them kind of half-assed.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, you guys have played with Seth? I think, you know, on occasion.
Played with you probably most of all.
Right,
with him second most of all, and Armin I've only played with maybe
once or
a
twice,
couple times.
Back in the day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we need to remedy that. So I want you to pick a. That
was fun.
It disturbs me that you're not playing the saxophone. I want you to at least come out to some of our stuff.
Sure,
and play the horn.
I definitely plan on starting to play more. I mean, I actually played one gig during the whole pandemic, and it was fittingly a funeral, and it was shocking how terrible my chops were.
Oh man!
Seth.
I mean, I practiced for like 3 days, in a row, and my chops hurt every day.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh my god, man! It was,
you go a month, and
I guess so.
Happens.
I've gone through stretches of like not really playing that much, but this was unbelievable to me.
Seth.
Oh, what's up?
You talking about I needed to find somebody that like can play metal, can play metal, but he knows a little more about theory. I'm like, you didn't know about me? What you didn't know about me?
I did.
What happened?
You're on my radar. Well, look,
See?
There's a bunch of like projects that I have that are so off in like the future that I just haven't gotten around to. But yes, you're one of the guys that I'm considering. So.
All right.
Yeah,
he's
I
a perfect candidate.
I know you play the hell out of that thing. So yeah.
We got to hear one of
we're square.
Armin's,
We're square.
prog metal tunes the other day entitled "Release the Kraken."
Yeah.
Nice.
You should just put that in the description on this. Let people hear it because it's actually sick.
We'll pop it up.
Sweet.
Nice.
What are you doing right now?
Right now,
day to day.
Like I said,
I didn't hear it.
I'm playing guitar every day. I've been doing it for over 3 months now.
Are you working a regular job?
Yes, yeah. There was a couple months that I was unemployed, but now both of my old jobs have opened back up, so I have some income.
It's Grand Prize?
Grand Prize is, we just opened yesterday for the first time.
Grand Prize Bar.
And then I also work at Bohemia's Cafe. I used to play there actually before I started working there.
I know that place is.
Yeah, that's
a cool
really
place.
Cool spot. It's a fun spot. Yeah. It's got a good organic.
Bob Henshin place.
Bob.
Yeah. Let's start a jam night.
Yeah.
Wait, what are you laughing at?
No, I'm just laughing at jam sessions because they're usually terrible. So
that's a good point.
Hit or miss.
That's a good point. But I think that
usually miss for me.
I think that if we ran it, there wouldn't be that many cholos running through.
Because with jam sessions, it's always hard to balance. You want everyone to have an opportunity with trying to be respectful to the
And just for the record, I don't really know what cholos means.
I think it's like a
cellos.
Cellos.
Cholos
with feet just walking around.
No, cholo.
Cholo.
I think it's like a meat gravy.
Really? Okay.
It's like a light.
It does sound like a food.
Light.
Are you flexing your culinary knowledge?
Sometimes this is probably too soon into the podcast to bring this up, but we usually go down the like spiritual route, consciousness route, stuff like that, because we're into that here, but we're not like very like postmodern about it. We're pretty like serious about it. We look at the science and we look at the Eastern medicine and where there are some,
We look at the East and the West.
Do you have any, interest in that realm?
Yes. As far as like the kind of like the tangible substances or anything that's of that nature, I've never really been interested in that. I think when I was young, kind of learning how the body first responds to certain substances that aren't food, essentially, that it usually coughs or spits and like smoke or acid or anything like that, just kind of makes your body kind of react. Until you get used to it, then you can kind of go to other stages. I just never kind of got past that first stage of what my body was telling me. So one of my kind of mantras is, it's hard enough to figure out what I'm doing or thinking or feeling at any moment that I don't want to cloud it in any way. So that's kind of how I've chosen to live my life.
Well, not even substances, just
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I just wanted
the
to start with that
ritualistic
first.
side.
Right,
Absolutely, yes.
right.
Yeah, I've always been more attracted to Eastern philosophy and kind of the Eastern way of thinking. It's heavily influenced my music. I like to think that it's reflected in the things that I create. But grew up reading a lot of Zen, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a cat named Krishnamurti. Just heavily read that stuff, and also had the typical accompanying arrogance of upon reading those things when I was in my early 20s. But I found that as I've aged, I still have those kind of core tenets that really inform who I am and what I do, of not really kind of buying into anything from the West as far as religion or most philosophy. I kind of felt like Sartre and it's a little too detailed, when it's just like there's a certain humility, and the humility comes from the mystery of Eastern philosophy, of accepting that one can only know so much. And because, I mean, if you compare even a genius or Renaissance person to take stock of their entire life, the things that they know as opposed to what they don't know, what they don't know is always going to be way larger. So to really kind of embrace that, not to embrace ignorance and just be a total buffoon, but it's more about humility, because we are the most arrogant species on this planet, combined with our power. we've kind of made a mess of it. So I feel like that's kind of built in to be tolerant and accepting of every kind of creature. It's more of a Buddhist vibe for sure, and so like even as like a kid, after a while when I learned the value of all life, I didn't start that way. It's a bit of a tyrant. But really kind of flipped a switch and like realized what I was doing was causing pain to every.
I like that image though in my head of just
man.
tyrannical
Oh, it was
Seth
bad.
Paynter.
I was.
What do you mean tyrannical?
In a past life.
I threw a kitten in a pool, like a swimming pool, and I immediately climbed the fence and like got it out because I was just so shocked at what I had done.
Well, that's interesting.
I threw a frog like as high as I could.
Oh man!
In the street, and I watched it.
What did that frog do to you, though?
Did absolutely nothing. It was there to entertain me because I was a punk ass.
He did
kid.
something.
He did something. He was guilty.
Does that style of thinking affect like your diet today?
Yes, it always has. I mean, once you realize, once you think past. Or you think further into how we get food, where it comes from, as opposed to just kind of living that insular American lifestyle of just like, well, the food's at the grocery store and it's in abundance and it's just stuff like beef isn't even, it's just a thing. You don't even think of it. It's hard as a kid to conceive them as being from an animal and the actual killing, and you just
the whole process.
Yeah, you just don't even consider that. So. It's something that I still struggle with. I don't eat as much meat as I used to, and I've never been like a huge carnivore to begin with. I still do it on occasion, but but there's always a bit of conflict or ambivalence when I do it. But and I always try to do the thing of honoring the fact that it's not to be wasted if you are going to eat it. It's to be treated with a certain amount of respect. I try to do that, but then I'm also aware of the conflict within me, but then I am also okay with conflict within myself, because that's just how.
Is it a hedonistic conflict?
Sure, of course. The desires are always tempting to just throw oneself into them, whether it be diet or sex or food or
Should we play Truth or Dare?
I will answer the truth every time. There will be no daring.
Interesting proposition.
But yeah, so like to kind of tie some of this stuff back to music, like space and silence is huge for me. I've kind of like one of the types of music that I like to play often is free improvisation, to where
I've done that many times.
You and I have like done some of that stuff, and I as well.
And I think you were at this particular one next door to the Cons wine bar, and it was Keith Carnegie, the drummer that everyone loves for many reasons. And I remember you, because I'm slightly intimidated by your ability to do what you do in that genre, because I have my own history and my own and everything, but I've always loved the music, but you had definitely spent a lot of time with it, and so playing next to you, I can remember this one time that we had played like a song, and then it was like, it's okay, and you sounded good and everything, but then I was just like terrified to play, and there's this thing that happens where when it's pure improv and there is no right and wrong, that you can either just let everything go, or you can just listen, but listen too much and let things go by, or you can just not think at all and play. And I kind of found this like perfect middle that was like, just don't judge yourself, just don't judge what other people are doing. And then it's like there is no. It's a hard place to reach.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's kind of a paradoxical style of music to play.
Yes.
Because it's free, there's a lot of people that, in my opinion, don't do it very well because they think of that freedom that they can just be mindless and just play nothing. It's still music. Right. You're still having a conversation with the people around you. It can be very abstract.
Right.
But to completely ignore everything else around you is to me,
or just to play crazy stuff.
Yeah. Just for
and
the
not
sake
really
of
just
it.
listen to what's happening.
Exactly.
But I was saying, like, it's kind of it was a hard place to get to, because even within that song that we were playing, if it could be called that, but it was like really cool, and I was inspired by it. But then I just had this fear of like, no, don't play that. Don't play. And so like, I think like you guys know about what are y'all's opinions about just pure improvisation? And we tried to do it the other day, for instance, with our wonderful friend at this little backyard concert thing, Deshaun Smith, the drummer, and he is definitely more of a gospel, like rock, funk and
most
stuff.
drummers are like groove. If we're not grooving, I don't know what to do.
Exactly. And we were like, just play free, and so he was like, he just had this look on his face. He had no idea, and so there was like time, like, and then it's just like inevitably, and it's just like. So it's like it takes preparation to get into some space.
It is
like
hard
that,
to get out of that mindset of time or wanting to play time or even key. I felt like, especially when I was playing bass with you guys, I was like, you need to not like set a key.
Right.
Like, God damn.
But see, that's the challenge of playing that music
is that
when you start out with it, you want to do the opposite of what you've done. That's what we kind of feel like what free improv is. To me, that's the first mistake that we make.
Right.
The first step is to be honest with ourselves, and to not have that fear or to embrace that fear. To me, like that's that's what is arguably more interesting about playing music with people are the psychological interactions that happen within the group. Because sometimes it can pair off into twos or solos. There's all kinds of different orchestration things that can happen from moment to moment. And if everyone's like cool with each other and like chill, then there's no worry about like, oh, am I stepping on this dude's toes? It's, you know what I mean? It's like we can allow someone to kind of take the forefront, to play something louder or like more motivically kind of interesting, and then everyone kind of pulls back and can support that. That to me is the fun thing about playing free improv. I think it's that you can allow yourself to not kind of fall into your like typical roles that you've learned from playing your genre specific instrument, or not instrument, but you know what I'm saying. So, yeah, because to me that was one of the interesting things about playing saxophone is that I'm used to being front and center and being like the melodic thing. So now I'm like, let me play something that's more like a drummer. Right. Let me play something that's more like a chordal instrument. And that like expanded me as a musician and I'm sure pushed, hopefully who I was playing with to also do like something different as well.
Could you say something about...
No.
All right. Anyone else? Could you kind of expand on just the feeling or the acknowledgement, like the knowing that you're in that state, like once you reach it, like you can, as a musician, we can feel that's like that positive feeling that just everything is going fine, like everything is working out, and like I can't do anything wrong at this point.
I think,
but recognizing that, like, and trying to make that like what's forcing it, trying to push that to the other guys.
Right. Well, I mean, like obviously part of it is just
girls.
It's just like doing it and just kind of trying stuff and seeing how.
Or neither.
And how like people,
whoever,
and seeing how people react.
Armin, whoever.
But like for me, I think that I've always kind of been naturally wired this way. Like I remember like being in like high school and learning this is the blues scale, and and I'm just like, this is some jive shit. I'm just sound like crap. So what I would do instead is just play what I felt. So I played juvenile frustration, and that is what I sounded like. Right. But to me, that's more of an honest expression, and I like the way that I've like approached my music as far as like as an improviser is that I need to start from a place of honesty and sincerity, and then over time I will refine it. Whereas like I feel most of the kind of jazz and improvisatory pedagogy is the opposite. Right. That you need to sound polished and then you find your own style. And to me that was terrifying because I don't want to sound like my heroes. I want to be my own sound, like my own style, So I was like, it's the harder way, but to me, it works better for me.
I think for younger musicians, I remember, and I can't remember actually who said this to me, but it was just in high school, and it could have been at some all-state tryout or something like, and somebody was like, who was this really great trumpet player, was just like, he said, just when you're trying to get better and you're trying to play more and more and more notes and stuff, just step back and just play what you hear, because if you do that every time, then you'll start out right. You'll develop right. You won't go past beyond what you're supposed to.
I mean,
at
to
that
me,
moment.
It's so similar to learning a new language, even though it's an abstract language. Because it's music, it's like you have to start with just a few basic words.
And a great. Connection to that was Victor Wooten, the bass player. When he was at the store that I worked at, when he did a clinic, he did a little clinic there, and he said like for so many classical musicians who want to go over into improv and just anybody wants to get into improv, he says that they always say that they're just not ready. They're never ready. Of course. That you're never gonna be ready. Yeah. And he compared it to a child learning a language that knows 15 words, but they never shut up. Yeah. Like they just keep using them and they keep getting them, so they hit the ground running.
And that's that fear thing. Again.
Right. They don't have any of that fear.
It's like, what are you doing music for? Like, what are you trying to get from it? That's another thing for me is like knowing what you want. Like the rare times that I teach private lessons, because no one really wants to seem to do that, is I basically ask those questions first.
You're scary.
Because it's not tattoos. It's because I think most people kind of fall into music because they're just like, I like it and I want to emulate my heroes or whatever. That's typically what it is. Obviously, everyone has their own reasons for for why they do it, but for me, it's to know why you're doing it, then because the technique is easy. I mean, there's plenty of people that can show you how to do it, and that just takes practice and like repetition. But to actually think about stylistically or personally what you want to express through your art, that's a never-ending thing. And that to me is that's it. Who cares if you can play these licks in all 12 keys? Who gives a shit about that?
That's just
but
practice.
It's just like, exactly, that's what practice. You can almost, like a monkey could almost do that, you know? Very talented monkey at that.
Mm-hmm.
But
talented.
But yeah, but to like so to me, that's why I've always really, really liked free improv, because it gives you that blank canvas that you don't feel like you're restricted. Now, I do think that it is important to have a certain technical background, because you need to have those words and the syntax and all that from the traditions of music to be able to pick and choose. But then once you know how to do that stuff, then you explore how to reinterpret that things to do what you want. So, for example, I was going to talk about this earlier with the free improv thing, is that if you want to just like play just a groove or have a key center, that's fine. You know what I mean? You can have freedom in other elements, or you can not. You know what I mean? That's the freedom of it. It doesn't mean that you can't do anything that's traditional.
But that's intimidating. Sometimes it can be.
Well, and that's just because of the fear.
Right.
And it's just like, because people think of it as just like, oh, well, this is a genre, and it's rooted in free jazz, which comes, they think of the history, and it's just then they're putting shackles on themselves instead of just being like, wait a minute, I'm free. I can play whatever I want, just use my ears and go. And if you fuck up, you fuck up. You have a laugh at it and you go, because that's the fun of it. Whereas, like, if you go on most other bandstands that, that are like jazz or rock, if you go up there playing some stuff that doesn't fit the genre, people are going to let you know real fast. And you arguably should respect that genre and try to work towards that sound. But this is a different thing. You know what I mean? So it can be a little scary for people that, because like I said, that it is true freedom, even though it's not. Because you can't play what you don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Just can't do it.
Or can you?
Exactly. And there's the paradox. There's the Eastern thing again.
Let me divert since you brought it up. Talk about the tattoos.
Tattoos.
And for anybody who's listening and watching, you can't see.
Oh, you can stand up if you like.
No, I could. Well, it's a modeling shoot.
Yeah.
Seth has.
Where's my camera? Oh, there you go. Hello, darling.
Do a little turn for us, Seth.
Seth has some nice blacked out arms and legs, and I remember the first time I walked into cons, I was like, it's not cold, and you're wearing Under Armour with your shorts and your t-shirt. And then I got closer, and I was like, gotcha, sick.
I think that's what everyone thinks the first time they see Seth.
I get that almost every time. Yeah,
there's hair growing out of his sleeves.
Yeah, it's a weird fashion.
Those are technically called sleeves, right?
Yeah. For me, I used to not be into tattoos when I was in my 20s, and just thought, man, the human body's beautiful on its own, man, doesn't need to do decoration. And then totally flipped.
Wow.
Because I had realized that why I thought that was largely because I hadn't seen different types of expression, different types of art on people's bodies. It's just like the typical.
You only saw one version?
No, I would just see like
tattoos
people that had tribal tattoos or like a barbed wire thing, or just some really kind of typical conventional kind of stuff. And then it wasn't until I saw some more abstract stuff, some geometric things, that I was just like, made me reconsider. Then I thought, if I were going to do it, what would I do? And so with me, I knew kind of early on that when I wanted to choose something, that I wanted to consider my whole body as a canvas, to try to make everything thematically fit, as opposed to how I feel how most people do it, where it's kind of a collage. They have little
mishmash,
different ones, that mean different things to them, personally. But for me, I was just like,
sorry to interrupt, but I remember, because we've lived kind of in the same part of town, for a long time. I've known you probably 10, 12 years, something like that. And I remember I was driving my car, and I remember you over by West Gray somewhere, and you were jogging with no shirt on, and I saw your back, and I was like, all right, I know that's Seth, because I can see that he's all sleeved up and everything. But then I don't remember, what is that's on your back?
Well, I've since then probably blacked it out, because I wasn't crazy about the art, and I go back and forth between kind of two
Don't be
poles.
ashamed.
No, I'm not ashamed. I'm fine with it. But that's what, yeah.
I just don't remember what it was.
Well, in the theme of loving Asian art, it was, and I had two kind of like Japanese block or temple block kind of style like painting. So it's very vertical kind of shape, but really like
that's
thin.
what
Because the theme for my for most of my body art is rectangles. So I have a big one on my chest. I have a couple on my stomach, and then kind of continue that theme on my back. And then I typically.
Why didn't I think of that? Rectangles.
I typically don't like.
Of course.
I typically don't like overt symbology. I kind of like more things to be surreal and like abstract, because that fits my thing of like earlier of like how can you know this, almost anything, the humility and yada yada yada. So but then at that point I was like wanted to celebrate like certain things about me that I really enjoyed. So one side I put my love of science fiction and on the kind of one side, and then the other side my love for absurd humor and kind of traditional Asian imagery. So I wanted.
Because that's what I think I just saw it that one time. I was driving by, but it's like I'll never remember. I'm like, who's this badass? And then I was like, oh, that's Seth. And I didn't say anything, but I remember that tattoo, and it was like a block, and it like kind of came up like that.
And then
it was cool.
Like, those are on the outside, and then what's in the middle and then stretches out to my back and like connects with my arm bands is this demon that is pulling swords out of the blackness of my arms, kind of using like a negative space kind of vibe. And then also I really like demon imagery, but I also wanted to from like reading a lot of books like about like fantasy and like sci-fi, I knew that I wanted to have another black rectangle over the demon's face so you can picture what it looks like for whoever's looking at it.
Right.
So they can have their own image of it, and just kind of superimpose that instead of just like having some typical fangs and all that stuff.
So your name is also Seth. Set. What are your thoughts? This is like a third person perspective on yourself.
Right. I think I might be knowing where you're headed with that, but I'm not so sure. I know it's from the. I can speak for my parents. I know it's from the Bible. I know it was after
even Egypt.
Yeah,
like Set.
Right. Yeah, it's God. It's a fairly old name, but of course, like when I was 8 years old, I wanted to change my name to Dennis. I think most people kind of often like think about that when they're kids. Or just
Dennis is chill.
Be something different. Yeah.
My name's Corey, so I've had that. I've thought about
temptation.
No, not now.
Well, I mean, not now, of course.
There were times.
Corey.
Yeah. So what was it?
Just sit down.
But people love that name. People love that name. Yeah. I don't know why. I was crazy to even
put
think.
a silent W in there. Just throw it away,
All right. Hey, back to you.
All right. Okay. But the name. My parents kind of gave me the impression of not anything super significant about it. It was after I think a friend that they really respected, or like some dude from the TV show. I always forget this stuff because names just aren't important to me. It's another bit of my Asian kind of influences. Like labels don't interest me, but the spirit of each person is what's interesting to me. So when people, that's why I'm really bad with names. When people introduce their name, I purposely don't pay attention.
What's my name?
Because something with a W.
I knew it.
But because to me that's more interesting. It's like the individuality of the person that's supposed to.
That's funny because
and then eventually I learned
about how much names mean to so much of of society.
For some people it's super important.
It's
but also
way important.
People seem to fulfill the archetype of their name.
Yes.
And in your case, I feel like that's totally true.
Yeah.
And in Armin's case, it's true. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's true.
Yeah. I get it.
But, That's also what I'm getting at.
See, and those things I kind of classify as just, I don't know.
So you're just trying to get more. Oh, you're just trying to then, like, not that they're completely valueless, but that you want the tendency to be to not have too much stake in that.
Well, because when I think of, like,
important to you,
like when I harken back to certain characters, like, for example, Keith Carnegie, I'm not just like, that name. No, I think of all the silly things he's done and said, and the wonderful music he's played, But
to me, Carnegie, it's like it's got a perfect connection to him because he's such a character.
I'm not saying that. I mean, I couldn't completely, like, separate it if I could, but to me, that's always the first thing that comes to mind. That it's just like that kind of collage of imagery and experiences that I've had with him.
The name only benefits the idea of the person.
I mean, because actually, conversely, I like to defend people that are just like, like when we're talking about kind of subgenres of music, and people are like, man, it's more than just, you can't just call it this, for example, like symphonic black metal or something. Mm-hmm. People are like, well, this band is so much more than that, man. You can't reduce it to that. And it's just like, well, that's just a starting place.
Yeah.
Just a few words that describe it. Doesn't limit that. It gives you one little piece, and you can
just like the name jazz is like, there's a million things within it. There's a million things within it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like there's so many people.
Classical is like there's a million.
There's so many times that, like, people say, "Oh, I don't like jazz." I'm like, you do.
You just don't know.
You just don't know which one you've heard that is jazz. That
right.
You like.
That's true.
You will like it.
Yeah. And I'll find you.
Well, you're also wearing a cool shirt that I was thinking about. What is the shirt?
It's a band shirt. Yeah.
What band is it?
It is a band. It's one of my favorite bands called Nightbringer. It's a black metal band, kind of a cult metal band from Colorado.
Oh wow!
It's one of my favorite concerts that I've ever seen. It was out in the middle of the mountains. It was a black metal festival, just deep in the woods, and burning crosses, pig heads. I mean, like the full theater, all that theater stuff. I don't really care about. Your
standard family.
Exactly, kids,
festival.
Cotton candy. But to me, like, one of the reasons why, to go on a completely different thing, one of the reasons why I really appreciate extreme metal, especially black metal, is that these guys and gals are trying to make the most evil, whatever that even means, music possible. Like that pursuit is fascinating to me. Right. Like, how do you do that? And then what is evil? You know what I mean? It's just, I mean, you can go.
Are they evil?
Exactly. I don't know that. And what does evil mean?
It doesn't necessarily mean
we're evil.
Is it just? Yeah. Oh yeah, some of them. Yeah, true. But then, what is evil to you? You know what I mean? This is where I don't. There are certain things that are kind of. Because almost anything can be justified. This is where I get lost into thought where it just makes no sense.
I'll tell you what's evil.
Tell me.
Yeah.
That voice.
Prohibition.
But to actually choose to try to make something so atmospheric and not care about technicality seems like it's not even metal to most people. But this is, there's so many guys that purposely buy the cheapest microphones, the cheapest guitars and amps because it captures a certain sound that they're really interested in. That kind of purity is interesting to me.
Right.
Because most of us are really into gear, myself included, and just like what it can do for you, and the newest toys, and I mean all these things we have right now, podcasts and all that stuff. It's fun. But I think from playing an acoustic instrument, I'm always tied to that kind of natural organic sound and that kind of mindset of get what you can from the gear that you have. You know what I mean? And that's one of the funnest things about playing saxophone, as you well know, the different colors that you can get from the instrument. And to me, guitar is really similar that way.
I was always fascinated.
Whether it be your touch or amps and all that stuff, you could the tone palette is really wide.
I was always just impressed, and just interested in all the different sounds that you can get out of the horn. Just you personally, because obviously there are hundreds of saxophone players out there that we listen to that are all talented and all provide a totally different sound. Absolutely. And they have their own stuff. And then but then, you know, there's some that are just more on the experimental side, and some who just really follow all, like, they try to exhaust, like, what is possible on that horn.
Yeah,
and it's different, and it's almost like you're focused on the horn itself, like, and what it can do for just tone purposes and stuff like that, and color and stuff like that. So I really was always admired your ability to exhaust the instrument. You know
Thank
what
you.
I mean?
Yeah.
So
I mean,
you know, I take like note of that. You know,
I'm glad that
it's an interesting
that you hear all those
concept,
like,
you know,
like all those colors, because this stuff is interesting to me. Like when I was in college, I would do my required kind of, you know, standard saxophone repertoire practice, and as soon as that was over and I couldn't wait for it to be over, I would sit down and just try to put my fingers in the wrong places and see what I could come up with. Experiment with tongue placement, different air, using my voice, anything that I could to try to get something different, to think as in an unconventional way as I possibly could, and explore what was possible with the instrument on my own. I mean, because I'd already heard plenty of like free jazzers that have made certain kind of sounds.
Maybe some of your influences as far as just horn players, and then maybe branch out to just instrumentalists.
Now there hasn't been too many, because like I said, I've always been kind of a self-made kind of person. Like my hero for a long time was Coltrane, but I've always kind of preferred mid to late. I don't really care for the early period at all. You know, I mean, even though, you know, this is one of the
so like
giants
albums. So like albums like Stellar Regions. And
let's see.
Ones like that.
See, I haven't listened to this stuff in so long because I wore it out when I was in my 20s. I mean, I was about 2 years when I was obsessed with John Coltrane when I was in college. He still is largely my biggest influence, and I think anyone who hears me would agree that comes across.
But I definitely hear your own voice. You know, I don't hear Coltrane.
Yeah, well, I mean, to me, it's been so important. I mean, it's almost a problem for me that I sometimes, if I hear certain players that are kind of doing something interesting, that I can only listen to it for so much, because I don't want to be influenced by it. And I also know that I go on this stupid little pity party of like, I'm going to be like that. You know, it's like, I don't want to be like that, you know, but I admire someone's skill that I can go my little, you know, everyone has their own kind of issues. Anyone who's an open, vulnerable artist is going to have moments of doubt and insecurity. That's my little party one that I do. So I've learned over the years to limit that and just kind of take what I can get as long as it's constructive. And once I reach that harmful level to where it's not helping, just cut it off and just listen to no music or just do something else.
Flee the scene.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what you got to do. You know? Just know your tendencies and your limits, and that's how I try to do it.
Right.
So, yeah, Coltrane was my dude for a long time. When I was still kind of in the more traditional vein, Wayne Shorter, because he was so economical with his playing. He could burn, but he could also do a lot with so few notes. Whereas Coltrane he's a force. He's just like the unbelievable combination of technical prowess and spiritual, power. Just amazing, So, but then going into really contemporary classical music is probably more of what influenced me, like John Cage. That using silence and putting weird stuff in pianos. So when I was in college, I would like press the sustain pedal down and just play. I would rip through like an arpeggio.
Oh, I've done that. Cool. I've done that many times. I love doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
that sounds fun.
I mean, I've done an album that has like some of that stuff because I loved it so much.
I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, it's cool, right? That's fun. But so who else with saxophone players? I mean, there's some guys that I kind of checked out briefly, like Albert Eiler, that I would kind of enjoy. But I think that I didn't really stay in that period for very long because I was just too stylistically different from them. I would like my approach is that, especially kind of earlier free jazz as it kind of came along, it kind of texturally and thematically stays in the same place for kind of a long time. I mean, I call it free jazz 101, where it's just dense all the time. Everyone's playing as much as they can, and it's just this constant energy of drums and guitar, like whatever it is, And for me, I've always wanted to have something that could be musical and could be dynamic and could change at any moment. And and I never really kind of heard
I totally hear what you're saying, because the stuff that we've played together, definitely, if we added more instruments, I don't think that it would turn into that. Like
it's
it
harder.
would still it's
harder.
harder
To do it because
it's harder,
because people, because there's so many people that I feel, as you kind of mentioned earlier, feel the temptation to, like, I should be playing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a musician, I'm on the bandstand, I should be playing. Feeling that pressure of, like, I have to participate, when it's like, no. If you don't have anything to say, you don't have to.
But the music that you're speaking about is kind of like when it was first getting going, there was kind of a straight ahead kind of a free jazz that was going on, and then there was also like just a all the time, everything at once, like that. Because
it was a rebellion of it was so fitting of the late 60s. It fits perfectly with what was happening historically.
Right.
So it's like traditional. Only talking about jazz, because the contemporary world of like classical music it's a whole different thing.
Well, rock and roll and everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Doing it too.
Yeah, exactly. And other like art forms were really just wanted to push it to its limit or its breaking point, and it pretty much kind of did, at that point. So that's why it kind of went back to more of a fusion kind of.
I can only listen to that for so long.
Of course, me too.
Or be participating.
As much as I love to play it,
yeah.
I don't own a single record of any free jazz.
Right.
I don't, because I'm like, I don't want to hear that, because that stuff is best experienced live, and it's different every time.
Right.
And you can listen to things and analyze them up to a point, but that's also the thing for me too. I'm not a hoarder. I'm a purger. So if I don't listen to something like at least once a year, or it doesn't have like certain value to me, I get rid of it, because to me it's not interesting. I'm not going to stockpile things for the sake of it, because there's always something to learn. But once again, like I said earlier, I'd rather kind of know something really, really well and explore its depths and its intricacies and its nuances, as opposed to just like, I know a little bit of this and a little bit of that. What do you want to do? All right, it's not interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a problematic as being a musician, where like for me, like I want to do all kinds of music,
sure,
and but you
can't do
pretty
it all.
much, but you can't do it all, and you want to get good at something,
balancing act.
But really, there is no limit to whatever music you want to make. If
True.
you want to be in a bluegrass band and then play death metal and then play.
Absolutely. If you got the time.
Sing Frank Sinatra, you can do it all, and then write a piano, classical piano piece. You can.
Absolutely.
You can do all of that if you want, and be a rapper if you want.
And be a rapper.
Yeah. That's why.
And have a podcast.
Yeah. Compositionally, that's how I am. I like to do all kinds of stuff. But when it comes to like what I play on my principal instrument, it's a little different. To me, that's the fun thing about playing different instruments and trying different styles, is you kind of learn what each instrument and which context brings out of you. I think that was one of the things I learned from like going from tenor to playing soprano. It's in the same key. It's the same keys. It's essentially the same horn, but it's an octave difference. But it's amazing how much that can change how you conceive and how you play music. To me, it's always been really fascinating.
It totally changed.
And like pianos is like that to the extreme, because it's the same bloody keys.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, and then guys will play on different pianos, and it's like, I play totally different on this. And it's just like they look the same, to like the layman or the non-pianist.
The difference of a piano, just the actual piano itself, can change the way that they play and what they think of.
Yeah, because once you get to that level of like experience with those instruments, it becomes, you notice all these little subtleties that you didn't before that can really change how you play.
Where did you go to college?
I went to North Texas for 1 semester, hated it, left, because it was so competitive, and I'm not a fan of competition, like when it comes to music.
Yeah.
So I went to U of H and had much more freedom there. So
that's good.
And then when I was choosing my major, it was like, it was either going to be composition or it was going to be like saxophone performance, like in a more classical thing. So I was like, well, if I do saxophone, then at least I can learn how to play it,
Yeah.
But then leave compositions to be pure and not infected. So that's what I chose.
Very good. What do you think? Oh shoot, lost it.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, besides saxophone,
Mm-hmm.
day-to-day basis, what are you most passionate about besides music? Besides saxophone, music.
Passion.
That's a weird word. I don't trust passion. I don't really trust desire. So I always try to keep it with like a little side-eyed. So
running, exercise.
For me, it's so exercise.
You run.
Exercising is definitely important to me because the times that I haven't exercised, I don't feel the same. I don't feel good. I don't feel sharp. It affects everything. So I quickly realized that I need to keep doing that. I did it for most of my life, and there's been periods, usually when I get heavily into music, that I don't exercise.
Mm-hmm.
I realized that balance would not work. So, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's always been.
There's gotta be
intelligence.
There's something kinky you're not telling us.
Oh, well, there's plenty of that. Is that my passion? Is that my singular thing? No, absolutely not.
How about I want to keep it even more. I want to keep it even more broad.
To know about passion.
You know what?
That was the
Delete
word.
Passion. I want to know just like, what do you do? Because I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you do when you go home? What do you like to do?
I'm dull.
Besides music.
I'm dull.
Because we know a lot about music.
Right. Yes, we do.
You make a bologna sandwich. You turn the TV on.
I've always been a bit of an introvert, almost like a bit of a hermit. So I do a lot of contemplation, a lot of rumination, a lot of reflection. But I also know that at some point doesn't do any good. So then I just kind of let my mind do nothing.
And if I were a fly on the wall, would I just see you sitting, contemplating?
There'd be times when you'd see me reading. Like right now, I'm reading. I'm reading horror because I'm trying to find something that's unique. And
oh wow!
I can't. Everything's kind of a little.
I would love to read horror.
A little blah, but I'm kind of to me, like being jaded is like an issue. It's a problem that needs like constant vigilance to fight against, because it's
I see that.
When you're out of balance, like when it comes to not trusting desire and all that stuff that I just said earlier.
Yeah.
That it's easy to. I call it that I've been disenchanted since I was about the third grade. I have moments of like joy and like purity, but the ugliness of like this world and consciousness is just it's a little too much. I'm a pessimist. I'm a bit of a misanthrope. But I also know that it comes from a lot of idealism, that I wish that certain things weren't a certain way, and that simple disconnect is what is the cause of my own misery. Knowing that and the absurdity of it is why I like.
I would like to say that is
why I do what I do.
It sounds like you're describing me.
Right on.
That's what it sounds like. Basically, yeah. And that's why we get along so well.
I know we do
because, like, I see that. Things, first of all, when I was on this podcast, what was it, 3 weeks ago, 4, something like that, and I was a guest, like, I brought up this whole idea that I think I just see people walking around and I just don't understand. Like, I don't understand how they are functioning without knowing these things that I'm thinking, and that the vast majority of a lot of these people, do they really think that this is just naturally where we're ended up, like, without some real manipulation, like, on purpose by, like, people, and different. So anyway, it's just, that's kind of where I kind of live in my head sometimes. I try to get away from it.
I take it into a further place of unhealthiness and confusion, is that I think that, and then I think that is just the manifestation of the diversity of our species. You're going to have idiots, You're going to have simpletons, you're going to have geniuses and everything in between, and that's the beauty of it. But then, of course, you can't have the good without the bad when it comes to that. So you're going to have war and disagreements and famine and all that stuff. So it doesn't mean don't try. Of course, we should try to, that's a humanistic thing that I struggle with, because the pessimist is, wants me to be like, who cares, man, and just like, this death is the only thing that's real, blah blah blah. But then that disgusts me too. So I often get in these conversations with myself of warring and different philosophies that cancel each other out. And then thankfully I had those moments of peace, and that's why I think I love playing music and to kind of do creative things. Is that, number one, it preoccupies me, so it just keeps my brain to shut the hell up. And then I can do things that are just joyful and just
you're a recovering nihilist.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I were recovering.
Slowly during this.
I just manage my nihilism. But you're pretty much right.
I hope this podcast is helping.
It's very cleansing. Do a little ritual here.
What's your take on the ends of your consciousness, aka death?
I have no idea. It terrifies me, and I know that I shouldn't be terrified. And there's moments when I'm not terrified. Because it's about as natural as it can be. There are some times when I worship it as if it's an entity, as if it's a thing. When I actually don't think that it is, I actually think that it's just the end, and that's okay.
Like death.
Yeah, death. Yeah, I mean, there's times when I think that it's just like, I don't believe in gods, but I believe in death. And then I'm kind of making it. I'm anthropomorphizing it and like making it a thing. When I don't really think that it is, and knowing that I'm doing that in order to give myself order and purpose in this universe when I don't really think that there is, and that's okay. Like when I'm in my centered place, I'm like, I'm confused, and that's fine. Well, because who the hell really knows? We just kind of do our best.
Yeah, who knows?
But the only religion that I've ever kind of accepted as my what I actually believe, because I've read many, and I know that I don't believe a lot of what they say, but I believe certain tenets of it and all. Right. But when I was about like 12 or 13, I was laying in my bed one night and I couldn't sleep, and I thought, wait a second, because I was, obviously everyone's scared about dying, but I'm thinking, but there's just as good of a chance that like there's anything and everything that could happen, like that there are trillions of worlds out there. Like, I don't understand this so much. I am so ignorant that to have any fear at all is basically to even to be arrogant that I even know anything.
Oh my God!
And that's what so many people
I need to think like that more.
No, and it's true, because having a fear of death is like understandable, right? Sure. But my fear is the loved ones I leave behind,
right?
More than what happens to me. Yeah. I don't want to be rotting in the ground decomposing over 20 years. And
but see, and that's the mystery of like the connection.
But that's probably not
with like
what
the body.
Is. But if so, like, there's nothing I can do about it. So.
Right. I mean, ultimately, that's
the fear
where I
part
settle.
of it.
Yeah. I mean, I have my moment of freaking out, and then eventually you're just kind of like, well, I got to eat or I got to take a shit. I mean, you kind of have to go on with your life.
Maybe you do need to start taking substances.
I've heard that so often. When I was in high school, people thought that I was on drugs all the time, and I was like, I can't imagine if I
they were wrong.
What would happen? I might like explode or something.
I do think that they necessarily do not. Some absolutely cloud 100%. Sure. But I do think that if used properly, some of them clarify.
Okay.
Allegedly.
Exactly. Now here's always my response to that. That presupposes that I'm lacking.
Right. That you couldn't get there on your own.
Well, I use
even further than that, you're presupposing that I'm on this journey to like explore and to like reach this new level of understanding. No, it's okay to just be a schlub your whole life. Yeah, and that's a valid life.
Well, he was trying to.
I was gonna say, let me actually take back what I said. Not clarify necessarily, solely add perspective, but then also not hinder.
It's like trying a different pizza.
I wouldn't say that, but
yeah. I think it's really basic. Not hinder, can hinder.
Sure.
If used improperly.
Certainly.
But just add more perspective. And also I think that a lot of like ends that you get to with using something like whatever substance can be gotten to.
Agreed.
Without no doubt about that. I think it's just more of a quick tool in some sense, but
so for me, when I think of like on the day-to-day basis of what I'm going to do, what I'm going to eat, why I'm here, all these things, the only thing that I know for sure is that if I want to live, I got to eat, I have to, I have to do the very core kind of basic things, but beyond that, there's counter arguments and uncertainties with everything. So there's times when inaction is fine for me. For me, I'm not. So it's like
sometimes it's good.
So it's like you should do this drug, or there's scratch that. There's this thing, and it has these experiences for different people, these different opinions, and then I take this thing and I go, no,
I can tell.
Or I go, yeah, okay, but in like this way, and that's how I kind of approach everything. So it is, even if it has like this promise of being something really extraordinary, I always have to ask myself, am I lacking? Do I feel like I need to have a new perspective? You know what I mean? I mean, that could be me being stuck in that kind of perspective of like seeing things in that kind of binary kind of way, for sure. I definitely acknowledge that. But ultimately, that's how I kind of decide things. I've always tried to live a very humble kind of life to where I don't need much. So I just leave that for other people to enjoy. When I feel like the stoic part of me feels like I should be okay with just being who I am and having very simple things.
I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that.
So I really try to live that kind of life.
Yeah.
And then also, the thing is, I also, because I'm a little bit of a contrarian, it's also a problem with all my many problems. Is because he was saying that I'm a recovering nihilist, which I really enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. But is that I think I've just lost my train of thought because I got into but
contrarian.
Contrarian, yes, it's a problem because if a certain social group, whether I'm in it or not, really wants to do something, my tendency is to not want to do it. So it's reactionary as opposed to just something that I'm valuing on my own and choosing on my own. So I've gotten better at that, but I still have that tendency. So, case in point, if I'm around a bunch of tattooed artists and stuff, and there's people like smoking dope, then I'm just kind of like I don't want to do it.
You don't even
because everyone else is doing it. It's juvenile. I'm totally aware of that.
So you see other people with a bunch of tattoos, and you're like, I need to leave.
That's what I did for the longest time. I almost talked myself out of getting tattoos. I had to tell myself, well, you're going to get one and it's going to be on your body and your thing. Stop comparing yourself to others, but we're built to do that. We're social creatures, you know what I mean? So
it's funny. Sometimes I look at super tatted up people, and I don't have a ton, but I have more.
You have more than like the average, for sure.
And I look at super tatted people. I'm like, they're probably like they're probably like weird. At the same time, I'm saying like I want to be totally.
And people will like look at you and think the same thing.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, totally.
All right, can I just for all the audience out there? And I've already told you guys, and I've told you this before, but the only tattoo that I can think of to get is the tattoo of my face, on my face, just 20% smaller, right here.
Yeah,
I think it's a brilliant idea. I think it's a really stupid idea, but it's not. I'm kidding.
No, you want me to do it, is what you're saying.
I absolutely do want you
to do it.
You're
not saying it's a good idea.
I want you to do what you want, honey. That's all I want.
I got a question for you. This conversation is similar, not actually similar. It touches on a lot of similar things that I talked about earlier with this guy today. And, 6 months from now, Apple, give us a year. They're not going to come out within 6 months. Apple comes out with a new Android surrogate body. COVID is rampant. Other illnesses are rampant. Everybody's sick. But they say, with our new Apple, sponsored by Google, Android body, you can...
Or you're not saying Android. You're saying like a machine body.
Yeah, an Android. An Android.
Okay, they weren't gonna come out with an Apple.
Yeah, with the Apple logo on the chest. And okay. They say, can you're gonna transfer your consciousness.
Yeah.
No sickness, no death,
right.
No anything, no money even really. Like you get to this point of complete autonomy or something like that. Would you do it?
And as usual, I think of the positives and like the negatives. Like the positives is like it wouldn't be all that different from where I am now if I had the ability to turn myself off or terminate myself. Then it's a matter of time, because if I want to live for a certain amount of time, now that's like supposing that I don't have to do ads for Apple or something because I have it on my phone. There's all these other obligations that are in the terms and conditions and all that.
Yeah.
But if it's
that's
just
the scary
like
part, yeah.
you pay whatever amount of money and then you have this body to do whatever you want, sure, I might do it for a little bit, because it'd be nice if I have like a robot body to do some robot stuff, to see how high I can
What
jump.
if they said that there's evidence that your consciousness is not actually meant for this, and that
I'm already skeptical of that, because that kind of language is like arrogant and just
right,
elitist
some
from the
slick
beginning.
way.
Yeah.
They're like, we're not actually sure if the consciousness can take this or is supposed to do this, but we know it can do this. We just know that the extracting part might end it, when in reality, if you died right now, it might do something else, continue forever. Would you still do it?
Not be trapped in a machine.
Like for me, if it's
trapped,
like trapped somewhere.
If it's any like technological thing, I want the second generation. So I would not.
No, you have to make your mind up now.
Well, then I would say no then.
Good point.
Because I mean, to me, it's.
What about? Sorry.
No, you're good.
This is very related. What about vaccine tomorrow?
For
COVID.
For COVID, no, because
What about 1 year?
I don't know about the norms for the safety
Vaccines.
measures of like
Usually
vaccines.
over 5.
Over 5
Usually
years?
over 5.
Yeah.
Now you could say
If it's optional, then okay. But if it's mandatory, that's
because you know that Pfizer has a vaccine that they say is 95% effective at prohibiting COVID, or at least decreasing the symptoms of you getting it. And I didn't say that right, but whatever. But they're asking the FDA for emergency use to get it out to the people fast. And I'm looking at that and I say, well, first of all, anybody who knows anything about big pharma knows about Pfizer.
Sure.
And knows about their interests and knows about what they've done and suits against them and all this kind of stuff. And you're like, I don't know if I want that.
Well, sure.
As the
If you have
group giving
money involved, if you have politics involved, it's never as simple as it arguably should be when it comes to health.
Yeah.
It should be universal. It should be, money should not even enter the equation. This is my idealism, of course, speaking, but yes, the reality is I would definitely not trust it. But and also, I'm not the first to say this, but there's plenty of folks that could do very natural things to help make themselves at much lower risk.
Yes.
We
had a whole podcast with this guy named Dr. Tuttle, who's a really famous vegan activist.
Cool.
And I mean, that's what we were talking about, in the sense that they're telling you to just like slap a bunch of hand sanitizer on your hands and wear a mask, but go to McDonald's later. Right. And it's like, that actually is not going to help you one bit.
Yeah, well, I mean,
it's going to hurt you.
To go back to my thing
McDonald's.
about like diversity of the human species, there's going to be some idiots, there's going to be some smart people, there's going to be some other people, close people, all that kind of stuff.
There are going to be some idiot smart people.
So when it comes to that, it's similar to gun rights. You have to do something. Doing something to help people is better than just doing the cynical thing of like, well, but if we do this, they're going to go to McDonald's. And I'm not saying that you're saying that.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that kind of fatalism is easy to kind of
Seth,
fall into. Myself included.
Would you say that like your belief is just that like healthcare is just a human right?
Absolutely.
That right now, with the big pharma coming up with solutions and it not really making a whole lot of sense, like before with them not just telling people, well, eat better food and your immune system will be better. Preventative stuff. So there's no evidence that that's what they're trying to do. So this is the kind of country, and that's how I kind of think.
Because that can't make you money unless you're in that industry, and then and that's only kind of popular like on January 1st when people make the resolutions and all that and not.
So it's a kind of a it's a hard question to answer, but it's I think that there are arguments that just normal Americans keep having with each other. Like the point is that, well, we want healthcare for everybody, but how? And it's like, and
how
I think,
quality
and in my
healthcare
opinion, I think it's not about the latter. It's not how. It's, are we going to do it? Like, should be more, and that's just my opinion.
To me, that would be a valid argument as if it has never been done before on the planet.
Right.
Then I'd be like, oh, you're right. It's never been done. How would you go about doing
right.
that? When it's just, there's numerous examples of countries that have been doing it for decades.
Right.
And it's a sustainable model that could easily be done in one of the most affluent countries in the world.
Right.
It's just absurd.
I think it's absurd.
And to me, it's very short-sighted, because if you want a prosperous and successful country, if that's your thing, you need two things. You need a reasonably smart population, so they work smarter, and there's less waste, which is better for, I don't even have to list the waste. You guys are smart enough to know that. And then the other thing is they need to be healthy enough to do things. And if they're not,
but then how do you control them?
there's plenty of other ways, my friend.
Quiet you.
The magic.
I mean, we're talking about
black magic.
We're talking about the entertainment industry. And
that's true.
And there's the internet. I mean, come on. There's just.
It's interesting in Sweden. I think Sweden, they have like universal healthcare, but I was reading some posts from some people who live there, but teeth are not included in their healthcare. So
I can't believe that either in this country.
So
this country,
especially knowing what we know about, that's the
and
gateway.
Just tooth pain. Like if anybody's been through tooth pain, like where it's like for days and days.
And so weeks, what he was saying is that,
like, why would you think that was, you're a human being?
Seems like a strange
if you can
oversight.
like not think that you're supposed to help somebody out with that. I can't understand.
It was a while ago that I read this post, but it was basically him just saying it's not actually utopia, because usually when there is like healthcare for everybody, the quality declines to some extent,
of course,
for sure.
Yeah.
But in Sweden specifically, he was talking about how teeth is actually a really big thing, because that is one of the biggest class dividers, because you can't afford it, and then you're already paying a bunch of money in taxes, like a ton, more than here. Sure. And that's another one of these trade-offs, and I feel like the healthcare thing is a major conundrum. A place that does not have public or universal healthcare, but it's super subsidized by the government, is South Korea. And they're private providers, but they're all like, not all of them, but there are many, many very affordable ones, including operations is generally affordable. And I was even talking to some, I guess, expats when I was there and talking about operations and stuff, and they were like, had a stroke, had to go to the hospital, and actually it was very cheap to get it paid, and I have insurance here, and so I'm just saying it's there's so much that goes into it, unfortunately, and it is so complicated, and I feel like it's extra complicated in America because we have so many different groups of people with so many different things going on, and beliefs and religions and ways of doing things, and even ways of interacting among each other, like different cultures,
and even
have
the
different
fact
business interaction.
Now that, I mean, this is once again, this is nothing new, of course, but people have done polls about what the general populace wants as opposed to what Congress actually does, and the disconnect there, and this is one of them. I mean, to me, there was no more striking example than when Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders were on Fox News, those little town hall things that he did, and he talked about, this is a Fox News crew. I mean, audience, and this is like in the thick of like when Trump was doing better.
Yeah.
And he talked about healthcare for all, and everyone applauded. Or at least the large majority of people applauded, and that was a noteworthy or newsworthy thing to make a comment about that on other networks. To me, that's very telling, and that was before the pandemic. Yeah. It's something that people have wanted for the longest time.
Totally. And
it's something that, of course, there's never a perfect solution. There never is, because we're too diverse of a species to do it. But to not make it significantly better when we have the means is to me immoral and just unforgivable.
And the means come from just, obviously the supreme wealthy.
Of course.
Making
the wealth disparity is just out of control.
And making them not hoard their wealth, but put it back into the economy.
Yeah.
Like it's all. I mean, it seems like a big, pretty.
It's
big
crazy.
No offense to like Bangladesh, but this isn't Bangladesh. Like we have the infrastructure, we have the technology. It's like we can make it happen.
It could be fixed.
But we're just, but we choose not to.
We're arguing with each other for no reason. It seems. Like not us, but just the country is arguing with itself for no reason. It seems.
You have to stall growth in order to profit. Forever.
Thanks, Armin. We know that, Armin. Thanks. Thank you, Armin.
Just letting you know that.
Who's the nihilist now?
We've kind of hit our traditional time frame.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I feel like this is not a bad stopping point.
Sure.
If you guys are cool with that.
Well,
unless you want to touch on anything else.
Is there anything, just real quick, that you want to tell us about things that you're working on, things that are going to be coming up for you, anything that you're going to be releasing, or just because I've seen performance art of yours, seen videos and stuff that are pretty insane. They're pretty nuts. Awesome. They're awesome.
I've been doing some art videos for a while. And
if you want to drop them, like where to find them?
Come on. Everyone knows how to use the internet. As long as you have my name, you can find it.
So I'm just Seth Paynter, Paynter.
It'll be somewhere on the
okay.
They can read. But thank you though. But I was in the process of making a movie, like a movie, like a comedy, a horror comedy. So it's on hold, of course, because of the pandemic. But I would like to finish that in a couple of years or something like that. And then I plan to be done with video. I feel like that I've kind of done what I wanted to do. There's a couple more comedy sketches that I would like to do. That I have already written and pretty much ready to go. And after that, I wanted to really focus on composition. And that was part of the reason to want to learn guitar, to be able to kind of really understand different instruments and how they kind of inform me on how I want to create composition.
All jokes aside, we got to talk guitar more.
Right on.
And don't be timid to tell people to check out your stuff. Seth Paynter, we gotta plug it in. They gotta see it to believe it.
If they've seen this, then I appreciate it.
And once again, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'd like to say one more thing.
Yeah.
And that is, I really appreciate what you guys have been doing.
Nice.
As far as this, like the tone of this is not what I expected, and it's really, really cool, really refreshing, very much missing from our scene. And just,
there you go.
I mean, just talking about musicians in general, but just artists, it's nice to kind of talk about larger issues as opposed to just like, man, you another one record, and it's like, that's fun, to talk about music, but to expand it to things that are larger and that inform the art and that are tied to that.
Well, I'll tell you that.
Cool. And hold on, last thing. And the stuff that you guys are doing for the homeless is
I was just about to bring that up, and I appreciate that because we should probably say something about it, so just for anybody who watches this, they can donate.
Nobody's done that as far as like all the years that I've been in the scene here as far as jazz musicians.
Nick Cooper, yes, he's done a lot of stuff, but we're trying to just do what he's doing basically.
We're just trying to take matters. We're not even trying to follow anybody or do anything like that. We just literally want to take matters into our own hands. We don't want to go through a third party, none of this junk, and just here it is.
That's great.
I know exactly where this is going and the source. And we just got a partnership with Sinful Bakery, which is the vegan bakery here.
I know them. Yep.
And Alex, our roommate, works there, so that's kind of how we help do that. And
that's great.
Houston Ensemble homeless outreach, city outreach.
Yeah, we need some more donations. We're at 425 out of 2,500, which is pretty good, and it's all natural grassroots. We haven't been plugging it too hard, but except right now.
We need volunteers, but we don't need too many volunteers. We're trying to spread it out, and we're trying to figure out a way to spread it out to have I'm trying to get the dialogue going about the certification, like that you need should be easy. That somebody should just come to your house and check the boxes, and then everybody can do it. And that's
Sure.
kind of what I'm envisioning is this, that everybody kind of just goes to our site, and they have a guy that they send out that certifies that everything is good, and their masks and everything's, clean, and then it makes it easy for people to say, hey, it's Saturday, we're not doing anything. Yeah. Let's make some food and go give it to people.
We do it on the Lord's Day. Usually on Sunday.
A lot of them seem to not be there, like they're taking a break. I don't know what's going on, but we're there anyway. So
cool.
Yeah,
well, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Yes. Awesome.
And with that, don't forget to subscribe. I know some of y'all, y'all say we love the podcast. Well, subscribe.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's all.
Now we're on Spotify, about to be on iTunes, about to be on other platforms as well. So check it out on Spotify, iTunes very soon, YouTube. Follow it.
Houston Ensemble, at Houston Ensemble. And so we're about to head out and talk about some of that stuff that we couldn't talk about that you don't get to see. On 3, 1, 2,